1953 to 1954 was a crazy period for the Northwestern Railway. It started with Thomas's crash into a lead mine, then the Queen's visit, and a huge power outage. And then in 1954, severe flooding crippled Knapford, Molly was finally able to rest, and a new engine called Duck was brought in. In the midst of this tumultuous time was a new leader, Charles Topham Hatt. At 66 years old, and with several health issues, Sir Topham Hatt announced his retirement in late 1953. He formally stepped down on September 22nd. Topham was a railwayman, rising the ranks from fireman to engineer to chief mechanical engineer to director of the railway. He was very well versed in the running of locomotives and operations. However, his decisions were often financially risky and not seen as great business moves by experts and fellow members of the board. Charles, who was Topham's hand-picked successor, was completely different to his father. While having a fondness for trains, and having worked as a ganger in his youth, Charles had gone to school for business. In 1947, he became Director of Labor Relations, only 3 years after graduating from Oxford. He became a firm figure in the business aspect of the railway, and when he became controller, he aimed to make the running of the railway more efficient. Many were worried, as British Railways had just started the process of replacing steam locomotives with diesels at the time. Charles calmed this fear by ordering all of the locomotives under his command to have a service and a new coat of paint. However, Charles wasted no time in modernizing the railway's image. Firstly, he rearranged the schedule to act more on a centralized system. 4 round-trip expresses were offered at 8:30, 11:30, 3, and 7 o'clock. Commuter trains came hourly as well as freight services. New special services such as the coach to Farquhar were added to the schedule as well. Reserving space in regular goods trains became much easier with a new phone service. Now customers were able to reserve space on the phone and pay the yardmaster directly. This was more cheaper and streamlined than ever before. However, for larger goods clients such as the Tidmouth Dairy or the Crosby Oil Refinery, specialized trains were added to the schedule as needed. Headed by Winston. Increased ease for passengers and clients wasn't the only thing Charles had to offer. He also greatly prioritized the standardization of the railway's procedures. A new signal system, lamp codes, speed limit, and even a designated up and down lanes were all now part of the Northwestern Railway's operations. It wasn't all smooth sailing, as it took a while for older crews to adapt to the new systems. But by the end of 1954, the railway was a lot more productive, efficient, and above all else, safe. Charles was also hell-bent on reducing the wasted land that the NWR owned. The yard at Crosby was left almost completely abandoned, finally being ripped up in 1959. The Brendam Town Yard was also handed over to the town in 1955, due to the size of the yards at Brendam Harbor. Tidmouth Yards would be the site of a grand new coal facility and sheds, as part of a construction project in 1959. However, the magnum opus of Charles's 1954 to 1959 infrastructure projects was the Knapford Harbor reconstruction. Knapford looked completely different in 1960 than it did in 1952. The rails were now above the town, with a fully functional harbor nestled underneath the main line. The harbor had been rebuilt as a supplement to Tidmouth and was wildly successful in that regard. By only 1957, it had become the 3rd largest port on the island. When a new decade dawned in 1960, the Northwestern Railway was in an unparalleled financial and economic situation compared to 1952. Especially at the time when British Railways seemed to be hobbling along. While not completely knowledgeable on how locomotives work, Charles Hatt's pragmatic business decisions undoubtedly protected the NWR from hardship and placed it in an advantageous position moving forward.